Due to many factors, the end of the Old West, the decline in popularity of polytheistic religions, and the passing of the Silver Age of comics among them, there are only two areas in which true American myth-making occurs anymore: pop music and one's sexual history. For about 15 years or so, I spent quite a lot of time trying to combine the two. Using music, or song lyrics at least, to tell girls how I felt was pretty much my entire romantic MO throughout high school. Sophomore year, I had a huge crush on a girl named Kathy, a senior with brown curly hair that came down to her shoulders. She was also really tall, so you can see the problem with this already. I hung out with an older crowd, and Kathy was a friend of theirs, and I would sit at the lunch table with them and just moon over Kathy while I ate my flat cafeteria pizza. On the last day of the school year, I sent her a letter that contained the lyrics to "Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic" by the Police. Now, when I say I sent her a letter with those lyrics, I don't mean those lyrics were part of a larger narrative about our destiny and how said destiny was irrespective of any height differential. No, the lyrics were the whole letter. No, "Dear Kathy," no, "This song makes me think of you." Just the title of the song, the name of the band, and the lyrics. And not written, but typed. In one of those A9 business-size envelopes. Not terribly romantic in retrospect. I'd apparently not yet realized the personal nature of handwriting, nor had I bothered with stationery, but I was pretty sure Sting's words were going to carry the day. I gave the letter to a mutual friend and told her to give it to Kathy. My friend later told me that when she gave the letter to Kathy, she read it and exclaimed, "Oh, from the little guy?" No. I chalked this up to a victory. I had an impact. I never saw her again. Ignoring this clear signal, I returned often to this Cyrano-like arrow in my limited quiver of romantic expression. When I started dating my high school girlfriend, she would get countless notes from me filled with nothing but song lyrics. Mostly from Queen. Which, yeah. Freddie Mercury's flamboyance aside, we had a rather rocky relationship. We broke up and got back together numerous times. Other than the main cause of our strife, this 22-year-old guy she was dating either behind my back or in front of my back, depending on the week, I don't remember much about the details behind most of those breakups. Except for this one time. Because as we were breaking up, the song "I Know I'm Losing You" by The Temptations was playing in the background. Now, when you're in love or falling out of love, and especially when you're in love in high school, every song on the radio reminds you of whatever relationship you're in at the time. Even still, the lyrics to "I Know I'm Losing You" couldn't have been more on point in that moment. That was my place. They went a little something like this. Your love is fading, I can feel your love fading. Girl, it's fading away from me. 'Cause your touch has grown cold. As if someone else controls your very soul. I've fooled myself as long as I can. I can feel the presence of another man. Now, this was incredibly painful to go through. But you get much better timing than that, right? I mean, when I tell the story of our big breakup, that's the detail I use to really drive it home, and it becomes this Olympian tale of romantic woe, a young boy's heart crushed in the talons of a vengeful harpy. That moment taught me a great lesson. Any pain or embarrassment is endurable so long as you get a great story out of it. I continued this pattern of musically assisted myth-making in college. The first time I had sex was during my freshman year of college with a girl named Angela on the floor of her dorm room while we were listening to Meatloaf's "Bat Out of Hell." Despite a lyrical canon that's drenched in the concerns of teenage lust and angst, the Meatloaf oeuvre doesn't exactly create the ideal backdrop for losing one's virginity. It's akin to an 8-year-old experiencing her first communion to the sounds of Def Leppard's Hysteria. To be honest, I didn't have much choice in the musical selection that evening. We started getting down to business in her dorm room, and I hadn't known in advance this was going to happen, so I hadn't thought to bring any mood music. She had a few tapes, most of which were lousy, and the only one that seemed palatable to me was Bat Out of Hell. Perhaps I thought the 10-minute title track that led the album would be loud enough to keep the people in the hallway from overhearing the sounds of our ecstasy. And if so, I admire the moxie I had that led me to think the experience was going to last much more than 10 seconds, never mind 10 minutes, and whether there'd be any ecstasy involved. A few years later, I attempted to rewrite this portion of my sexual history by claiming that it was not Meatloaf, but Marvin Gaye, who was the soundtrack to my first bumbling attempts at lovemaking. Of course, the first time I said this, I was pretty drunk, so what actually came out of my mouth was, the first time I had sex was with Marvin Gaye! So there it is. Rather than stick to the truth of the situation, I chose to describe my entrance into manhood as accompanied by a soul legend rather than a sweaty screamer prone to Wagnerian musical excess. I'll be honest, I feel a bit silly retelling some of these stories tonight, not because I'm embarrassed, but because they're all about a version of me. And that's a version of me that never really existed. You see, that story about me and my high school girlfriend breaking up to the sounds of I Know I'm Losing You? While it was the most memorable, it's not the story of our big final breakup at all. I don't even remember where along the timeline of our relationship it fell, but it was probably 3 or 4 breakups before the big breakup. And a few years later, I learned there was nothing at all coincidental about that song playing at that exact moment. You see, the big breakup occurred in my friend Steve's backyard, while he and some of my other friends were inside his house, knowing full well what was going on. And in my time of adolescent heartbreak, Steve took it upon himself to dip into his parents' record collection and cue up I Know I'm Losing You and play it over the loudspeakers in his yard. Steve was kind of a dick. By the time I found out that it was Steve's parents' component stereo and not fate that lent this breakup such mythic proportions, I told the story several times over, and it was chiseled into stone. As Carlton Young said in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, when the legend becomes fact, write the legend. And though I've long since come to terms with the soundtrack to my first attempts at sex, there are plenty of other details about that first time that I usually keep to myself, and just because tonight's theme might give me the cover to do so, I'm going to spare everyone, including myself and my lovely wife, an involved explanation. But suffice it to say, it was nothing to write a song about. It was almost accidental. I was 19, and like most 19-year-old virgins, I felt I was surely among the last persons in my cohort to still bear that reverse scarlet letter. So like a trip to the post office, I was through waiting patiently for my turn and just wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. Perhaps for that reason, it was uninspiring to all involved, and also why I felt the need to throw a veil of seduction over the whole experience, so it was more, oh baby, and less, oh shit.